anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Good morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us for this panel discussion on the softer side of protection with Manny and Martin Notting. I'm Pete Morton, the CEO and founder of Morton Executive Decisions. My company provides consulting and protective security services to individuals as well as commercial and nonprofit organizations all over the world. I started in this industry with a preconceived notion that all I would have to do is find, contract, and arrange security services for clients, because I started out as an owner of the company. And then, of course, the client would understand that they need security and be very cooperative and appreciative of my services. Being a combat veteran and all, they, of course, understood that I was there to keep the bad guys at bay and protect their life. Of course, that's not reality. It's a very important aspect of the job, but what I found was about 90% of my time was spent doing things other than protection. I was fortunate, had a protection and intelligence background, and I also worked on the commercial side in the banking industry for JP Morgan at the private bank, and had dealt with ultra high net worth people a lot. And it gave me a better understanding of human behavior. I was also able to muddle through a lot of mistakes and lessons learned starting out. And one of the things I saw was a gap in training that was being provided to my EP CPOs regarding customer service and how to build trust with people that did not necessarily understand anything about protective security. They understood what they saw on TV, on movies like The Bodyguard. And so I found that the perfect EP CPO was likely someone that was 90% executive assistant and about 10% protective agent. Alfred for Bruce Wayne, the Gotham version. Someone who can anticipate the needs of the principal and if necessary, evacuate them quickly. So today we're going to be speaking with two experts who have mastered the art of anticipating a client and providing with value-added services that they need throughout their day in order to be efficient and really go through the day in an event-free manner. So gentlemen, I don't want to screw up your resumes. So if you don't mind, would you give us some background? Let's start with you, Martin.
Sure. So my background is military. Came out around about 20 years ago. I went into the corporate market from there and for a little while, got frustrated with it. But what it did, as you just said, it gave me a grounding, understanding sort of executive mindset and what their expectations are and the way the corporate world works. From there, I moved into the EP side of things, and I've been there for around about, over 10 years now. So I'm working with a raft of individuals, from ultra high net worth individuals to global CEOs, to diplomatic as well. So having a good wide view of what the industry is, as well as high profile individuals as well. And each one of them, different personalities, different needs, different requirements. And so you've got to match that as you go. But I think that understanding of the etiquette and the needs of those personal individuals switching onto them is important.
And you have a background in business as well, right?
Yes, very much so. Yeah. So I've got a couple of businesses under me. I ran a business for corporate health and wellbeing for quite a while, and now with CP, a CP company, as well as a training organisation on the back end of that as well. So teaching people to be to do hand-to-hand combat, conflict resolution, as well as the CP side of things, and also hostile environment driving as well. So a whole raft of pieces there. But but this is a big thing. Is as you say, it's you get the people coming out of the military, and they we've got to understand we're not PSD. We're not bouncers. We're not minders as such. And switching across into a different mindset from that.
Right. What about you, Manny? Manny has a very interesting background, and he's definitely the outlier here when it comes to the people in this on this webinar. But I'd like to hear just a little bit about your background, where you came from first off, and how you got into what you do.
Okay, I'm Manny Ontiveros, or Manuel Ontiveros, creator and founder of Lord Wallington. Sounds really fancy, and people always ask me, Lord Wallington, are you British? I'm not Martin, as you can tell. So Lord Wallington is actually just the nickname of our dog Wally, which is just kind of stuck with us, and we created this brand around it. And so my experience comes from, I was in security forces in the Navy, and I did 5 years in that, which was a great, I had a lot of world traveling and all kinds of different training that I didn't think I would use years down the road. Here we are, I've been out for about 15 years now. And when I launched Lord Wallington, it was kind of an experiment of how to support families and homes who are just busy individuals. It never was going to be a executive assistant or a butler per se business, but it quickly did evolve into that once I realized there was a gap, especially in the Southern California area, because we're very casual down here. We're not, the bow tie butler. We're more or less if you wore shorts because it was hot butler, then that's kind of what you wore, because that's how Southern California is. So the business quickly evolved into a ultra high net worth butler service on a very casual level, not in service, but in attire, or just knowing that you're in Southern California, so you can't be too stuffy. People who live down here that are ultra high net worth or high net worth are usually here for months on, months off. This isn't their primary residence. So because of that, you have to create an environment where it's relaxing and a place for them to come and just chill from their usual hustle and bustle of what their profession is. So since then, the Lord Wallington brand has grown into this butler service, and for me, it's been kind of the perfect role, because I have my, as we're going through this conversation, I have this, back pocket security background that I might need to use. A lot of the ultra high net worth individuals have people like Martin or Pete already as the frontline security. Heaven forbid something happens, I'm the last line of security before the family, because I'm right next to them. I'm their right hand. I'm with them all the time. So something like this is I think is an important training for people in the service side of it, the house staff, housekeepers, chefs, because we're all there for one goal, and that's to protect the family. And so even nannies, right? So nannies are with children all the time. So this kind of training, with Pete and Martin I think is crucial in either the EP side or the butler executive assistant side, where you're able to fluff the pillow for the principal, but also know that you're the last line of defense, so you better be ready for anything. Right. So just looking forward to hear how this conversation goes and how we can help everybody.
I am too, because this is very unique, I believe. I think when I started out, I thought I'd be talking to the principals a lot. I thought I'd be talking to the client a lot. I thought I'd be negotiating with the client a lot. And to tell you the truth, I rarely see the clients. It's their executive assistants or their personal assistants that are with them all the time. I've had so many requests from executive assistants. Can you just train me on how to do this stuff? I'm like, yeah, give me a few years and we could probably get you spun up enough to where you could do EA and this at the same time. But I think it's more important for people to understand that we all work as a team. Nobody works individually. Anybody who is working individually, I would recommend they stop and understand that they're shouldering quite a bit of liability when they do that. But it's a team effort, and part of that team effort, working with contractors and subcontractors and all these different people in different disciplines within this group, trying to make life more comfortable for the principal. If they're not working together, if there's conflict, if they can't understand what the other discipline is doing, they're going to create chaos. And you'll see what you see a lot with these ultra high net worth people. They go through a lot of assistance and people working at their home until they find somebody that actually can fit, and they'll get rid of you quick if you don't fit, rather fast. I've gone through, I'd say it's usually about 11 or 12 different people typically trying to find somebody that fits an ultra high net worth client. And it might not have anything to do with their actual expertise, but their personality, something that they're doing just grates on the client. And they're just like, I can't stand this person. You need to give me somebody that can work with me. And exactly what you were saying, Manny, which is, hey, we're in Southern California. It's a little different here. And so I can't walk around in the bow tie, being the butler. I gotta fit in and make the client feel comfortable. And that's exactly what the goal here is. If you want to do good customer service in this industry with that level of person, you got to figure out what they like and how you can add value and make their life easier and more efficient, which is usually stepping way outside the box on what you normally used to doing and learning some new skills. So I'm going to go through a few questions here. I think these are probably one of the most important things, I think, in order to provide customer service, excellent customer service, is anticipation. And not just regarding threats, on our side, we, of course, we got to do our advanced work. We got to do our intel collection. We got to understand what the different threats are, looking at the different routes and all that kind of stuff. But more importantly, what the client needs in order to, like I said, that part of protection is very minute. The protection side of things, it's very rare that you're actually going to have to do something. You still need to be prepared, but in the meantime, you got to make yourself valuable to that person so they don't just get rid of you because you're grating on their nerves. So my question to you guys is, how do you anticipate a client's needs? What do you do? What special skill is there to figure that out? And either one of you can answer, starting out, doesn't matter.
Okay, I'll go first then. So for me, my role in the home is 95% standing by and listening. So with that, when you're able to stand by and listen, it's kind of one of these things when you meditate and people say, learn the art of just being still. And when you're being still, you can see a lot of stuff that's going on around you. So if you're not so caught up in the day or so busy, you're able to have the opportunity to step back and just watch the environment and what's going on. And for me, Pete was saying that, he thought he was going to talk more with the principal. So my role is very much with the principal. And so I have the opportunity to see and hear and know things that people will never know. And the confidentiality in that and the trust in that is off the charts. I mean, Pete was saying you can go through 14 different executive assistants. One could be because of breach in trust, or one could be because you spilled some beans or said all these things. So if you're going to be in this role, you have to keep your mouth shut, pretty much. So for me, in anticipating the needs of the client comes down to before, say I'm going in for a new role, I'm going to research this client as much as I can online and see. There's a lot of information on people, even though they can be private. If you just search them online, there's a lot of information that could be useful to you on things they might like. Maybe they contribute to nonprofits and it's, supports this, that, whatever. And that they like, strawberry milk, they like whatever. I mean, there's so many random things that you can learn about somebody online that you can, take with you when you go into this role and use it, keep it in your, in your toolbox when you might need it. But just researching the client beforehand. And then when you're in the role, just listening and watching, because you'll start to pick up on little nuances that the client does, or things that they're consistent in, things that they do at the same time every day, things they like, things they don't like. And it takes time, but if you're able to be aware of what's going on and noticing these different things that they're doing, it's much easier to anticipate what they're going to do the next day. So my thing is always, it's better to anticipate something and do it than not do anything. So I'd rather have my principal say, hey, this was, excuse me, this was awesome that you put my coffee over here, but I like it over here. Like, okay, great. At least I put the coffee there, and he didn't say, where's my coffee? Because then I'd be like, I should have anticipated that. It should have been something I should have already known. That goes down to everything from prepping vehicles for travel to making sure the kids are ready for school, making sure that, there's flowers in the house for the season. There's all these little things that a principal has a very huge burden on their shoulders, where they're supporting a staff. They could be supporting a staff that's huge, thousands of people, thousands and thousands of people, but they're going to know exactly the little things that they want every single day. So it's also your job to make sure that you're supporting them in making sure that they're doing their job to support all those thousands of people. They're also providing an income for you and your family. So there's a huge responsibility on these individuals. And though they might not necessarily think about, why I want my copy here, why I want my copy there, that's your job to anticipate that and know why the copy should be here, the copy should be there. Sounds super irrelevant and small, but that's my job. So my job is always, in the home and the vehicle. So my jurisdiction essentially ends once they get in the car and drive away. That's when the executive protection usually picks up and takes the lead. So my job and goal is to every day, and it is probably the most stressful parts of my day, is always being on, is always anticipating and being ready to be a step ahead. And so for me, I'd rather have them say thanks, but that's not right, than saying, where is it? So, it's better to have some kind of action than inaction.
Totally agree. Martin, you want to jump in on the EP side of
Yeah,
things?
sure.
How do you anticipate?
It's interesting because the symmetry between Manny and our job in a lot of ways is so similar. The mindset needs to be similar. As mentioned before, we're not out in Iraq being a PSD team. We are there to protect the individual. That is our primary role. However, it's also about facilitation, negotiation as well. And I look at this as layers of an onion. You've got, you're in the center of there with the principal. You're, close with that principal, as Manny said. You're sort of listening to very intricate and detailed and sort of personal things from the principal. So from that, you're gleaning as much as you possibly can, being close to them. So you're in the car, sort of going from the FBO over to a hotel or to the residence. And from there, you're listening all the time, listening on the phone, you're listening to what they say to their PA in the back of the car. You've got the PA that is just outside of that. And again, listening to what they're talking about with the principal, but also with other members of staff all the time. So you've got all these people all the way around the principal, all with different roles. And it's about relationship and rapport with all those people. So they trust you. So they realize that you're working with them. I think some EPs can feel a little bit ivory tower, I guess, because they're close to that to the individual, and an importance around that, and an importance around the actual role, which is important. But you're part of a team still. You can't remove yourself from that. You can't be bigger and better than that. You have to be, one of that team, so that you are a go-to person for that PA, because PAs will have challenges at times that they cannot solve, and you have to solve it as a team. And if you don't have that team that bond, then things start to go south at that point. Okay. But it's also understanding each and individual client as well, and principal. So I have one particular one that loves Slurpees, and there's certain times through a trip we go globally with this individual, and so at certain times we're pretty certain that he's going to want to have this Slurpee. So every different trip we go to, and it's quite specific, and 7-Elevens is where he wants this Slurpee from. So we, whatever that journey is, we have to plot a 7-Eleven on that journey, and we do that ahead of time. We McDonald's, he wants McDonald's. So we find out where is what on that journey. Are we able to go there? Is it close enough? If not, then we've got to manage the client and the principal and go, well, it's going to take this long with this traffic. Do you still want to go there? And sort of try to, I guess, influence around that, because we have the threat of the principal, as a primary. And so sometimes it's not the ideal to do that. And it's understanding that, yes, this principal wants to do things. We have to facilitate their normal daily life as much as possible and what they want, but meet those needs, but also influence around that and understand them, understand their moods, and again, the PA, they are even closer than you are generally. They're there at every moment. So again, finding out what the moods of the principal is as well, getting updates on the day of that you're there. So, before you go, you're doing your advanced work. You do your desktop advanced work. Once I'm going to Jerusalem, and I knew I had to land. I had one day to learn the whole of the Jerusalem Old City, because we were going to go a walking tour around it. So I spent a couple of days on my desktop, Google Maps, understanding the history around all these things, because I knew I was going to be next to the principal, and he was going to be asking those questions, and the family around, but also had to lead them through this warren of streets the first time I'd been there. So doing that desktop advanced work, landing, then working for 12 hours straight, just walking the streets to understand all the intricacies of this. Then when we go outside and we go and do the walk around with the principal, each different place, knew exactly where it was, knew the history of it, so having that understanding. But we then come back to the PA piece, and you have an itinerary, but that can change. It can change on a flip of a coin. And having that relationship with that PA to actually send you, right, this is the update for today, and then update you with enough time to be able to set vehicles up and the like. And so that teamwork is there. That is massively important. Don't have teamwork, it all falls apart.
Yeah, I agree. I know at my level, having the EA in your good graces is probably paramount to actually being comrades or whatever with your team. It's the team's important and teamwork is important, but having that inside access to what the client is going to be doing. So I used to keep a running list on Microsoft OneNote and I never use names just so everybody doesn't freak out. It was always code names and everything else. Nobody knew who the client was, but I would keep a running list of their itineraries and the different changes and things like that would happen each time they traveled or went to a different location. Typically because when this client traveled, the EA didn't go with them. So he would expect the EP to be the EA as well. So it was adding on an additional duty really to what you're normally used to doing. And I remember he wanted to eat at a specific restaurant. And I was like, okay. So I went to this restaurant, it's really high end, and they're like, yeah, there's no reservations for like 3 months. I'm like, all right, we need to make this happen. And I tried to convince them, pull out some money, did all sorts of stuff, and I couldn't. And so I called the EA. I said, hey, I'm trying to get a reservation here. Within 5 minutes, she had it done from the opposite side of the world. She had some special credit card or something that just kind of was like, oh yeah, we'll take him now. So, but I mean, that's the kind of stuff. It's like, I don't know necessarily that kind of information. I need to have one of my team members, and that's at EA, to be able to rely on for certain things. And if I don't have a good relationship with that person, it's going to make it really difficult for me to stay employed, honestly, because if I can't do that for him, guess what? There's somebody else out there that can. So it's really important. I think those relationships regarding anticipation and then communicating with each other to a certain extent, limiting communication to who needs to know, of course, like we were talking about. Confidentiality is paramount in this industry. I was talking to Manny earlier about how we can't really advertise too much who we work for because of that fact. So it makes it a little more difficult on the sales cycle of things. But just to maintain that confidentiality, knowing the key people that you can rely on to do things, and then working together as a team, not thinking that I'm better than anybody else. That's a number one issue, I think, with a lot of this is ego. Put it aside. You are literally a servant. So just understand that you are a servant, and then things will go a little bit better for you. What about, I mean, sometimes like, you're around this person, especially if you're around somebody. I'm not around my wife 20 hours a day, but being around, so you're around this principal 20 hours a day sometimes, or just interacting on a consistent basis for days at a time. Sometimes you deal with some curt responses and rudeness, perceived rudeness at least, from everyone on the team as well as the client. But how do you deal specifically with when a client's rude to you? What do you do? How do you internalize that and process it, and then just continue to provide excellent customer service to the person?
Well, for me, I take all of this back to my service training. I think being in the service and this role go hand in hand. I remember when I left for boot camp for the Navy, my dad told me, you'll be successful if you just keep your mouth shut and do what you're supposed to do. That's what he said. He's like, just keep your mouth shut. Like, all right, Dad. So sure enough, you go into boot camp and you see all the guys running their mouths and whatever, and those are the guys that made us all suffer. But I think I was successful in that and just keeping my mouth shut. And that was probably the beginning of my training for this role down into the future, where I didn't know what I was going to be in. But for me in my role, for how personal it is, I have to, I think in my shotgun stress course where we had a Marine come in and train us, and you can imagine the things a Marine would say to you, screaming in your face while you're trying to put some shots down range,
Right.
while you're doing push-ups, wearing gas mask. I mean, it's called the shotgun stress course for a reason. So anything that's my one experience that I kind of carry through my life, where I think to myself, if it's worse than this, then it's really bad. But if it's not worse than this, I think I can handle it.
Right.
So those are kind of just things I've always remembered. And so when I'm in these situations where I have to deal with rude people, rude clients, it's usually I've been blessed enough to have principals who they're never rude. They could just be caught up in the moment to where they're having just a moment of stress, because like I was saying earlier, the amount of responsibility on their shoulders is huge, more than some people can even fathom. And there are times where they just have a bad day or they're in a bad mood. And so in those instances, I know it's going to pass. I know it's going to come and go. And I stand there and I just take it. I take the hits. Just knowing that it's going to end, tomorrow's a new day, we'll be fine. For me, the biggest challenge is people who come into the home as guests, or if we get phone calls or something from people who immediately name drop or just start, so and so this, so and so that. So they think that they have the justification to belittle you, or just be rude to you. And for those people, for me, it's kind of just the same thing. I take it as it comes, and just know that they'll leave sooner than later, get them out of the house. But it just comes down to, rude vendors on site, those kinds of things go back to relationships. Like Martin was saying earlier, it's just very important to work when you're working with vendors on the property or in the house, make sure you have good relationships with those people, because you're I'm essentially the gatekeeper to the house. We have executive assistants, personal assistants, family assistants, all kinds of assistants. They're all doing their own roles, but they're usually more concerned with those roles at the time. So in my role, I have to make sure that the peace and the harmony of the home is just very much, it's a nice environment to live in and work in, because a lot of these people work from their homes. Their homes are small office buildings, essentially, really big office buildings, actually. But for the rude clients or the rude vendors, people I deal with daily, I personally just kind of have to take it in stride. Yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, I'll do what I can, ma'am, type of thing. And I think that kind of also gets them to understand that, they're not going to get to me. So it kind of just de-escalates the situation a little bit quicker as well. Some of the assistants are very wiry because they're stressed out and they haven't slept and there's a lot going on. So they're running around with their head cut off. And if you rub them the wrong way, I've seen them explode because they're just beyond it. They can't take it anymore. So in my role, I kind of have to be the consistent mood, regardless of what comes at me.
Right.
Whether it's exciting, terrible, whatever, I just always have to be consistent. I have to be the most consistent thing for these individuals so they feel comfortable.
Yeah, I think that's important too. And it is a matter of understanding and empathy. I think sometimes we think everything's all about us. I've had principals yell at me, and even one called me a dumbass once, and you just kind of got to be like, how do I take that? And then, of course, if you take it in stride a lot of times and you are that calm and have that calm demeanor and maintain that, it shines a light on that behavior. And usually that individual will come back and say, hey, I'm sorry for doing that. I was just stressed out or something, and they'll explain themselves to you. If it's something that consistently goes on, of course, then it's probably time to look for a different job or a different clientele. But I've had some of those situations too. You just got like deep breath. You're probably having a bad day. You don't know what's going on. And the same thing with team members too. It's like usually when somebody's having when it's something that's out of character for somebody, there's something going on there that you can help de-escalate, just like you were saying, by being that anchor, to use a Navy term for you. Martin, how about you? You've dealt with some interesting individuals over the years all around the world. How do you deal with rude clients?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, isn't it? I think, all right, firstly, we go back to a point Manny made and about him being in the military, and we're ex-military as well. And I think that helps. When you look at a large proportion of people within our industry, they are either ex-military or they're ex-police, security services, whatever it might be. And it puts you in a good position to understand that, hey, it's not personal. It's just the way it is sometimes, take it, you've had worse. Okay. So that does help. Now, on the inverse of that, I can give an example of a teammate. Okay. So when I like to keep a nice steady head. Okay. However, and so my team understands that when everything is fine, then we're all fine. It's black and white, and it's just guys do this, do that, do the other. When things need to be done exceptionally quickly, it's very snappy, it's very to the point, and go get the cars ready, go. Now I had one civilian come onto the team, and the feedback after that was that I was rude and abrupt, and and I said, all right then, fine, okay, I'll take this on the chin. But what I did was I sat down with them afterwards and said, look, you've got to understand that sometimes things have to be done quickly. Okay, sometimes the niceties are not there to be given. We haven't got time for niceties. Okay, so don't take it as rude. Take it as being, we need expedience around this. But what it did was really, in some ways, it had taught me from the other side, from the principal side, a little bit. And you've got to put yourself in their shoes. And you've got to go, right, well, what are they up against? They're probably worth billions of dollars, pounds. They've got so much going on, different organizations, different people they're trying to organize, contracts, or if they are celebrities, they've got the brand, the ego, and all the rest of it that's there. And they might have come off stage, absolutely mullered coming off stage because they've given everything. You have to put yourself in their shoes all the time and go, right, well, why are they being this way? Not take it personal. You can have a task. You're out for 2 weeks somewhere and you're working 18, 20-hour days, and you're absolutely threaders. You're done, right, yourselves. At the end of it, you take the principal to their nice aircraft through the FBO. You're on the pan. You see them on the plane. They get out of the car. They walk onto the plane. Don't even say thank you, goodbye, nothing. But you can't take it personally because you don't know what's in the head. You don't know what's happening, the other end where they're going to, and you just got to go, right, I've done a damn good job here, and there's reasons why that would be. But that same principle on another time will be there, give you a hug, handshake, great job, thank you very much. So it's not them per se. It is just other things going on in the background potentially. And you are a small part of their big cogs as well going on. So yes, you're an important aspect to it, but you work with, say, diplomatic. You work with the Middle East side of things, and you are a very small part of that. You might be the PPO on them, but you're still a very small part of it. Cultural aspects around that is different as well. The way you're perceived, you have to take that in consideration as well. So don't take it personal, but also always be the polite one. And I think, because the vast majority of clients, principals that I have worked with, they are American. And I think my accent and my our cultural way of coming across is quite good, I think, in general.
You have
It helps.
manners.
Yeah, I think so. I think in some ways it is. And, you know, we're relatively calm, I think, you know, the British, and we go a million miles an hour when we have to, whereas if we don't have to, we're nice and calm. And I always try to have that sort of air of calmness around me and just be solution focused all the time. You know, I'm a negotiator, I'm a facilitator, I'm an enabler. And from that, nice and calm. And then you make better decisions when you're in that frame of mind as well. And other people around you within that team we talked about before will then sort of gravitate towards you, and they will follow that lead as well. That's important.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a point that's not really in what we're talking about, but I mean, you and I have dealt with it, Martin, where you're in different cultures too. A lot of times, sometimes you're the lead agent for a group in a completely different culture that's not used to the way you talk and the way you give orders and being short, and they're used to a more maybe laid back or a polite manner, no matter what, you know, about saving face and things like that in different types of cultures. So often it's hard. You have to learn that culture in order to make sure your team is good, and then at the same time making sure that the principal is good, and that can be difficult. That can be a balancing act. And I've had those conversations with contracted security after the fact. Yeah, the guy you sent was mean and hurt my feelings, and you just got to figure out a way to kind of explain to him, you know, this is a culture thing. It's not a personal thing, and it's not something against you or you know, the job you're doing or anything else. It's just the way they communicate. A lot of people don't understand that. And same thing when it comes to clients. This is what I always tell people is like, look, if you had a normal job, 9-to-5 job, right, where you're working for a CEO and you're the guy on the manufacturing floor welding something, don't expect the executive to come down and say thank you for doing a great job. They might if they're really good, but they'll probably do it for the entire group. And it's the same thing with the principal. This is you're I'm not saying low level, you're an important piece of their team. You're protecting them. And to us, we understand that because we deal with the threat. We're the ones sacrificing, right, and putting our lives on the line for this individual. But that's not necessarily always the way they're going to see it. You're a part of their company. You know, you're a cog in the wheel, like you were saying, and they might not always say thank you, but understand that they're also paying your salary, and they're paying you pretty good typically, and so suck it up, buttercup. It's not like there's no union to go complain to. There's nothing you just gotta. This is customer service. This is freelance, typically customer service at its best. You have to make sure that client's happy regardless. Otherwise, like I said, it's not hard for them with their money to go somewhere else and find somebody to do a better job. But that brings me into something else. We were just kind of talking about it, but relationships with supporting vendors. Now, this is, I think a lot of people in their minds think, oh, you're EP, you're gonna strap on your gun and fly anywhere the client goes and protect them. That's not how it works. Some countries you can't, you're not gonna be able to carry. You're gonna have to hire out people depending on labor laws and all these different things. And so you're gonna have to work with subcontracted. And I'm sure it's the same thing with you, Manny. So how do you manage relationships with supporting vendors? What do you look for? And then if you do have issues with those vendors not understanding what you do and how you do it, how do you get them to understand, so that they can support the client efficiently?
So for me, vendors are, they're vetted, they're background checked, they're insured, bonded. In my role, when I bring anybody onto a property, there is an extensive steps in order for them to come on the property. There's confidentiality agreements they have to sign. They can't share anything. There's always somebody watching, so we've had to have people, somebody comes on, we tell them no pictures, no videos. As soon as we identify somebody taking pictures and videos, we request that they delete those pictures and videos. And so for us, it's very much when we find somebody who will at least make it through the steps of getting them on the property, that means that they're serious to do the work that they're coming in to do. And so from there, if they do good work, we just make sure that we're always cultivating a good relationship with these people, whether it's a plumber, electrician, audio video guy. And these homes are wired like they're mini stadiums. So the AV guys are there more than anybody. They're there more than the groundskeepers, because there's so much wiring and things that go into these properties for security and satellites and all of these things. And so once you find somebody who works well with you, and I hate to say it, but is available or has somebody available at a moment's notice, those are the guys who win with us, because it always happens where the day before the principal comes home, we check everything and everything works. They come home the next day and nothing seems to work. So it's kind of one of these things where we have to have those guys on call 24/7. And the guys that show up, we have AV guys who the owner will show up late at night, middle of the night, just to make sure it gets done. That way his guys, and this is a good leader right here, he'll come in the middle of the night to make sure something's working, to make sure his guys are fresh for tomorrow, because tomorrow something's not going to work again. So then they can come in and do their job. So just that relationship with the vendors, and just you get to know them. They're not, even though they're not part of the team per se on the property, they're definitely very much part of the team and the support team that you can call on, that you keep in your little black book of vendors that, and I guard that very, very closely, because it was a lot of work to find these people. And so for me, that's part of the value that I bring the families, is vetted, trusted vendors that, because I'm right there and they're going to say, X, Y, and Z, do you know a guy? And I have to be like, I got a guy. And they have to know that they trust that when I say I got a guy, that guy's going to come in and do a good job, and he's going to do it right. And there's going to be no problems, because once there becomes problems, then it comes back to me.
Right.
And they'll say, I just didn't know the guy, and I have to justify knowing the guy. So I got to make sure I always have a guy. But it all comes back to, have an instance where I was talking to Pete earlier, where a principal is very faith-based, and an individual who we brought on didn't seem to be faith-based at all. And then all of a sudden there were some issues, and they were beyond faith-based to
They found religion,
the likings of the principal, and that raised some red flags. Why are you all of a sudden so interested in this faith? And all of a sudden things started coming up, and there was always go with your gut feeling when you think something's fishy, into where it just ended up not being a scam, but there was just too many red flags that popped up, and the job is to protect the family of the principal. So immediately we took action. And you turn out, when you do more digging and you have other people doing more research, that things start popping up that maybe you had overlooked or missed. So these relationships, once you start to see things that are out of the norm from how the relationship might have started, that's why the relationship has to be pretty good with these vendors, in my role anyways.
Yeah, you don't want to recommend somebody that's going to end up screwing them over somehow, or ripping them off or something. Then you're done. Your reputation's, reputation is extremely important. I agree. I agree. What about you, Martin? When it comes to working with other vendors?
Yeah, my role is slightly different now. So we deviate slightly, because I'm given my vendors. I don't get a choice of them. They are, this is what it is. This is where you're going. This is what you're doing. These people are coming up, and it's a little bit different to Manny. However, it has its challenges, because you say you're going to a hotel, and you might go into Singapore to a hotel, and you need to you need to enable certain aspects to it. So with a certain client, we never go through the front doors. It's always the back doors. We always have a garage that's underneath. We go through the kitchens. We'll use the service elevators. Never do we go through the front doors. And you look at that, and the hotels, a lot of them, if they have a lot of sort of important people going through, they're relatively used to that, but not always. So you have to go there on the advanced piece and very much build that relationship and rapport, and even to the point of saying, look, some of our requests might seem a little strange to you, and it might be uncomfortable or inconvenient. However, we need to try to find some way to do this as best as possible without, so understand their point of view without putting you out as such. But we also need this. Again, I come back to always try to walk in that individual's shoes. They might have their own SOPs, their own rules and regulations, and people above them that stop them doing things. So it is, again, it's working in tandem with that individual to get the right outcome, understand their point of view, but also look at, is there something we can actually sort of come to a compromise on here? And if we do this, can we, and you allow this, can we do this? And a lot of the time, if you do that and actually put the responsibility onto them and say, look, I need your help, I need your assistance on this to make this happen, that sort of makes them into the big man, some sort of. And that puts them into a more superior position, which they want to be half the time, particularly if you go to Eastern Bloc countries, Christ almighty, or even
I don't know about that. Yeah.
And Asia's the same. They want to feel the big man. They've got people around them that are looking to them to see how are they being treated. So China, good God, first time I went to China, I didn't quite understand it. And you have the hierarchy aspect to it. And we're given security in this particular venue, and they'd been told what they needed to do. So I went up and said, look, I just need to do this as well. No, can't, because we've been told to do this. Well, I need to do this as well. No, you can't. And I had to go up the chain all the way to the very top to have to come all the way back down again. So again, it's understanding, again, that cultural piece again.
That's where the military experience comes into play.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it is. And don't bang your head against brick wall. Find a way around it. Be solution focused again.
Well, I got a question here from one of the viewers. It says, as a support EP person, how do you balance the relationship between yourself and security counterpart when you don't share basic intel, or when they don't share basic intel with you that could help make the detail less stressful? This could be shopping or going to a restaurant. Every time the security rep gets in the vehicle, it's stressful for the drivers and support folks. So I think he's talking about the gatekeeper, the lead EP that is trying to hang on to that position, either because they feel threatened or something by support, and they don't share information, or because they've been directed to not share information because of trying to keep that infosec, information security in play. How do you deal with that ambiguity and not knowing?
Interesting
support.
Truth, yes, and we've all been on those teams. Number one is if they're doing it for their own self-worth and all the rest of it, then you look to whether they're right for the team. That's number one. You've got to look at, are they right for this team? The team has to be homogenous. You need to be able to trust everybody. You need to be as a detail lead. You can be pulled out of that detail to go and do something to enable something. We're in Brazil one time, and we're using helicopters all over the shop, and you've got to come out of it to try logistically work out a number of different transportation challenges with helicopter drops, helo pads, to then picking up from there, one part of the team picking up from here, and it could be a nightmare. You're brought out of it. You've got to be able to trust your number two, your number three, number four to do the jobs they do and to jump into those. You're only as good as your team. And so I want to have total trust with my team, that they have your back and they're feeding that information into you. It's the same as the PAs. So, again, we went to one country, we landed on a particular airport, the plane went down. The plane had a challenge. There was talk about potentially moving it to another airport because it can only be fixed in that airport. And I said, right, let me know if this happens. What I did was I advanced it all beforehand, both of the airports, just in case, because I'm always about just in case, overdo the advancing. We're 5 minutes out from the principal going down to the vehicle to go to the go to the airport, and the PAs are chattering away about the plane being moved. What do you mean the plane's been moved? And so she goes, good God, right, okay, down to go to the team, on the WhatsApp, boom, they understand what it is, they're there, they've advanced it, but the problem was with the PAs not feeding that back,
right?
So again, but that was just a mistake. And so what you do from that point, so this is where this comes in, you have a good quality discussion afterwards saying, look, guys, Christ, that put us in a bad position there, and, we've got to work together. And it's about, everyone makes mistakes.
Yep.
And, and everyone's allowed to make mistakes. Just don't make them twice or three times, you know what I mean? Particularly big ones.
I'll give you to this person, I'll give you a recommendation. This is something I directed all of my people to do when it came to this, because I saw this happen a lot, where somebody be protecting their job and kind of doing the I'm not sharing and protecting my precious. I made all of the team and the EAs, if I could, which most of them agreed to, create one group chat. And any kind of critical information that was being communicated had to be in that group chat. And I would just use that group chat for my reports after the fact as well. If there was any side chat that needed to happen, it could happen on the side. That's fine. But anything critical had to be communicated. If it wasn't communicated in that chat, you're done. See you later. So that took away a lot of the I'm protecting information and making myself more important than everybody else. That's just silliness. If you're working on a team like that, and there's somebody that is in charge of that team, and they're not playing well with others, I'd probably start looking for another team, because that's your life you're dealing with. Manny, one more question, because we got about 10 minutes here, guys. I want to get to some of their questions as well. But let's, what I was going to ask you was about how do you stand out among competition? So these guys are all working in, if we could pull anything from you and your experience, it's what would you work with these EP guys and CPOs? What would you recommend to them, how they could stand out among the competition to land, like we were saying, you have all this book, your little black book of vendors. How could they land a spot in that black book? What should they do? You've seen a lot of good, bad, and ugly stuff. So what's your recommendation to them?
So for me, it comes down to it. Once you get to a certain level of this industry, it's very small, and you might not think, I mean, it goes back to the previous conversation of having a rude day or not the rude day, where the principal doesn't acknowledge you, that you're there, that you did an outstanding job. But for me, in my experience, there's always been something where they're aware. These people are very aware of everything at all times. I think that's why, like Martin was saying, sometimes they might come off as them being rude, but it's just because they might have something in their brain that is keeping the world running at that very second. And we have to remember that that's the level of people we are supporting. And so when it comes down to standing out, in this industry, it comes down to the first thing is trust. And you have to build it, and you can lose trust in an instant. One mistake, you're done. You've lost their confidence, and that's it. And it can just snowball from there. It can go. It's such a small group of people when you get to a certain level to where you do one thing and you're done at that level. You could probably make it at a lower level, and maybe not. You're not working with billions now. Now you're working with millions, which is still great. But if you want to be at a certain level in this industry, you have to essentially train yourself to know that trust is the number one thing that you're most concerned with. Because if you open your mouth to the wrong people, then it's done. So you have to, I essentially go on lockdown. If I'm working with somebody who is extremely high profile, no one knows who I work with. Nobody knows where I'm going during the day. Nobody knows anything. My wife knows. That's about it. So nobody needs to know, because I know that this is my role. And so if you're able to have that, people know in the industry that you're the guy that will just keep his mouth shut and he will do his job right. There's a question here about the burnouts and the 15 and 20-hour days. If you want to be in this industry, you have to understand that, in the executive protection or on the house service side, is that you have to know and anticipate that you're going to be in these people's homes probably more than they are. You're going to be in their homes more than you're in your own home. That's just the reality of this industry. And so if you're good at your job, the whole burnout thing is, for me, is I've found ways to I'm so consistent in the things that I do. I react to the things. So I have it down to where it's pretty easy for me to take breaks, right? So if I know there's going to be X amount of time outside of the house, I just sit down and chill out. I don't move because I know as soon as they come in, it's on again. And so my days fluctuate, just kind of like you're on, you're off, you're on, you're off. I know it's going to be a long, long day, but I also know that, in my situation, families are not there 365 days out of the year. So I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So it allows me just to be on my A game. There's days where I'm a man, but I want to cry. There's just long days,
Yep.
long stressful days. But I know at the end of the day that if I wasn't there at the level of where we're supporting right now, what could have happened? Like, I think that I'm the best at what I do. And so I go in it knowing I'm the best at what I can do. And I want to relay that message to the principal so they know I'm the best, because they're paying and seeking the best in everything. They have the best plane, they have the biggest house, they have the nicest cars. So they need to have the best support for their family, because we keep going back to the gatekeeper term, but it's very true. We are the gatekeeper to these people, and people want to get to you. And so if you're able to keep people from calling you to get to you, then I think that you've done a great job, and that should stand out and word of mouth spreads.
What do you think, Martin, standing out in the industry as EP?
Sure. I think, firstly, I have confidence in what I do and what I can do, my abilities, but I always want to be better all the time. I analyze everything that I've done that day and think, how could I have done that better? Always, how could the team work better? How could I work better? How could we have done that better? It's almost going back to the last question, and we brief in the mornings, we always debrief at night time as a team. We understand what problems have happened, we voice them. We then look at solutions. How could it be done better? We are open about it. In the mornings, this is what's going to happen with all the moving parts. And again, we get over problems of this non-information aspect to it. But also on top of that, it's about having a can-do or a will-do attitude, looking at anticipating all the time, looking at how can I serve that individual better all the time? How can I understand better what they need? That's the crux of it. It really is. And don't be on it all the time. Don't be intense, because they don't want intense people around them. Because they don't respect you when you are intense. Then,
you stand out really bad
at the right time. Yeah. So you've got to be relaxed so they feel relaxed. And then when you get intense, they understand you mean it. And there's a reason why you're intense. And now, sir, I need this to happen now, and so, or I advise that we do this now, or we need to move, sir. So if you're not on it all the time, then you don't have that ability to do that. And so they do not respect you, I believe, and your what you come out with, if that's the case.
Yeah, I think we got 3 minutes left, but I'm going to sum up real quick. Anticipation, confidentiality, confidence that you are able to do the job are probably three of the things that you need to take away from this. Being able to anticipate the client's needs, of course, and being in front of that. Once you do that, you can actually get things to be more efficient. I was able to get to the point where the client would have extra time at the end of the day because of me being able to be more efficient and anticipate their needs. And with that extra time, a lot of times they say, hey, sit down and talk to me for a minute. And which I never wanted to get too close to the client. Of course, there's always that professionalism, but the chance to sit down with a billionaire and talk with them, I'm probably going to take advantage of that being a business owner. But it was providing value. I provided value to them where they actually had time to relax themselves. That's why. And then looking at that relationship long-term. Don't look at a contract as a contract and then you're done. You look at these clients, these ultra high net worth, as 10, 15-year investments on your part. The longer you stay with them, the more money you're going to make and the more they're going to talk to their friends about you. And that's the only way you can actually get more in this industry is by word of mouth from the clients, because NDAs are signed and I can't stand when I see people out there flashing pictures of them with celebrities and things like that. You're making them a huge target. You're not going to last long in the industry at all. People don't know who my clients are. They never will. I sign NDAs. Unless my client actually goes out and tells somebody about me, that's the only way I get them. So you have to make sure you're looking at a long-term investment. And then the confidentiality we're just talking about, that's paramount. At the same time, understand confidentiality does not mean covering up crimes. I've had to say no to clients before. Hey, I need a massage while I'm in Russia. Okay, yeah. It's going to be a big fat hairy Russian guy though. Okay. It's not going to be a massage therapist. They don't like that. It's like, I'm not going to do anything illegal. And you're not released from having to report illegal activities because you're keeping confidentiality. So we're not lawyers here, but there's a lot of different things to take into consideration when you get to that ultra high net level or ultra high net worth level. And I hope that we were able to provide you with some good information that you can take with you. If you need to ask any more questions, if you have anything else that's on your mind, email me at info@mortonsecure.com and I'll pass it on. If Manny or Martin want to talk to you directly, I'll give them your contact information. They can reach back out to you. But I think we'll probably do a few more of these. I think this is an important subject that people are interested in. But thank you, gentlemen, for showing up. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you to all the attendees who joined and listened in. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot us those questions in the email. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.